Have you ever wondered if something in your daily diet could be silently increasing your cancer risk? Something so common that you might be consuming it every single day without a second thought? I've spent over 20 years treating elderly cancer patients, and what I discovered recently left me completely stunned. There's a specific food that most seniors consume daily that can increase cancer risk by up to 43%, according to the latest research from Johns Hopkins University. Sarah, one of my 74-year-old patients, had been diligently following all the cancer prevention advice for decades: regular checkups, moderate exercise, limited alcohol. Yet she still developed an aggressive form of colorectal cancer. When we analyzed her diet, I discovered the shocking connection that her doctors had completely missed. This common food was hiding in plain sight in her kitchen, and probably yours too. Today, I'm breaking my silence to reveal the 5 ways this everyday food item damages your cells and accelerates cancer growth in aging bodies. What's truly heartbreaking is how easily this risk could be avoided with the simple alternatives I'll share with you today. This information could literally save your life or the life of someone you love, so please stay with me until the end. Hey there, thank you so much for joining me today on this incredibly important topic. Before we dive deeper, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below so I can get a better sense of our community. If you have any questions about cancer prevention in seniors, feel free to ask them in the comments as well. And if you want to make sure you never miss potentially life-saving information like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Let's make health a priority together. I need to pause here for a moment and ask you something important. Have you or a loved one ever felt betrayed by the food industry or the healthcare system when discovering that something you thought was safe actually wasn't? How does it make you feel, knowing that everyday foods might be increasing your cancer risk? You know, many people experience a mix of anger, anxiety, and helplessness when they learn that something they've trusted for years might actually be harmful. It's completely normal to feel overwhelmed or even skeptical when facing this kind of information. If you'd like to share your thoughts, you can simply copy my reaction to this information and complete it with your experience. Even just a few words can make a difference. Your comments not only help me create more relevant content that addresses your specific concerns, but they also create a supportive community where others can find comfort knowing they're not alone in their health journey. Sometimes, the most powerful healing begins when we share our stories and connect with others who understand what we're going through. Ultra-processed foods have become a staple in American households, especially for seniors who may find cooking fresh meals increasingly challenging. As an oncologist specializing in geriatric care, I've observed a disturbing trend that recent research has confirmed. Regular consumption of ultra-processed foods significantly increases cancer risk in the elderly population. These aren't just any processed foods we're talking about. I'm specifically referring to those with 5 or more ingredients, particularly ingredients that you wouldn't typically use in your home kitchen. Foods with chemical preservatives, artificial colors, flavor enhancers, and various forms of added sugars that come in bright packages with long shelf lives. Items like certain breakfast cereals, packaged snacks, ready-to-eat meals, and even some yogurts marketed as health foods fall into this category. What makes this discovery particularly alarming is the speed at which these foods can influence cancer development in aging bodies. The cellular damage doesn't take decades to manifest as we once believed. Recent studies published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that introducing a diet high in ultra-processed foods can create measurable DNA damage in as little as 8 weeks in adults over 65. This is why I used the term overnight in the title. While it's not literally overnight in medical research timeframes, this is shockingly fast. Let me explain exactly how this happens and why seniors are particularly vulnerable. First, let's understand the inflammatory response mechanism. Ultra-processed foods trigger immediate inflammatory responses in the body that are significantly more pronounced in older adults. When we consume these foods, they create what scientists call metabolic endotoxemia, a condition where bacterial components from our gut leak into our bloodstream and trigger systemic inflammation. In younger bodies, this inflammation is often temporary and managed efficiently by a robust immune system. However, in seniors, this inflammatory response can persist for much longer periods due to a natural phenomenon called inflammaging. This term describes the chronic, low-grade inflammation that characterizes aging. A 2023 study from the National Institute on Aging demonstrated that seniors who consumed ultra-processed foods more than twice daily had inflammatory markers that were 63% higher than those who rarely ate these foods. This persistent inflammation creates the perfect environment for cancer cells to develop and thrive. Think about it like this. Inflammation is like a storm in your body. In a young person, the storm comes and goes quickly with minimal damage. In an older person, that same storm lingers for days or even weeks, causing progressive damage to the surrounding tissues. This is especially problematic because inflammation doesn't just promote cancer development, it actively interferes with your body's natural cancer-fighting mechanisms. Have you ever noticed how a cut or infection seems to heal more slowly as you age? That's this same inflammatory process at work. Now imagine this happening at the cellular level throughout your entire body every time you consume ultra-processed foods. The cumulative effect over weeks and months significantly increases your cancer vulnerability. The second mechanism involves advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These harmful compounds form when proteins or fats combine with sugars in the bloodstream, AE, process that is accelerated in the presence of highly processed ingredients and high-temperature cooking methods common in the production of ultra-processed foods. AGEs are particularly destructive to seniors because the body's ability to clear these compounds diminishes with age. Dr. Helen Vlasara from the Mount Sinai School of Medicine has conducted groundbreaking research showing that AGEs not only damage cellular DNA directly, but also suppress the activity of sirtuin genes, which are crucial for DNA repair and cancer prevention. Her team found that elderly individuals who consumed diets high in ultra-processed foods had age levels up to 4 times higher than those following Mediterranean or whole food diets. These elevated age levels correlated with a 43% increased risk of developing various cancers, particularly colorectal, pancreatic, and breast cancers, which are among the most common in the senior population. What makes this even more concerning is that, unlike some cancer risk factors that require long-term exposure, AGEs can begin altering cellular function within days of increased consumption. One patient of mine, Robert, who was 78, switched to primarily convenience foods after his wife passed away. Within just 3 months, his routine blood work showed alarming changes in inflammatory markers and oxidative stress indicators. 6 months later, he was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. While we can't attribute his cancer solely to dietary changes, the rapid deterioration of his cellular health markers was consistent with what we see in age-related damage. The third critical factor is the disruption of the gut microbiome, which plays an especially vital role in elderly immune function. Our gut houses trillions of bacteria that help digest food, produce essential nutrients, and regulate our immune system. As we age, the diversity and resilience of this microbiome naturally declines, making seniors particularly vulnerable to dietary insults. Ultra-processed foods deliver a devastating 1-2 punch to this already fragile ecosystem. First, they lack the dietary fiber that beneficial bacteria need to thrive. Second, they contain emulsifiers, artificial sweeteners, and preservatives that research has shown can directly harm beneficial gut bacteria. A landmark study published in Nature Medicine tracked the gut microbiome changes in adults aged 65-85 who increased their ultra-processed food consumption for just 3 months. The results were alarming. A 40% reduction in beneficial bacterial diversity and a significant increase in pathogenic bacterial species associated with colorectal cancer development. The researchers were particularly surprised by how quickly these changes occurred. Dr. Emmerin Mayer from UCLA's Microbiome Center explains it this way: the elderly gut microbiome is like an endangered ecosystem. It doesn't have the resilience to bounce back from dietary assaults that younger people's microbiomes might weather. When this microbiome becomes imbalanced, it affects more than just digestion. It compromises the gut barrier, allowing toxins to enter the bloodstream, and impairs the production of short-chain fatty acids that have cancer-protective effects. Perhaps most concerning is the microbiome's role in regulating the immune system, particularly the natural killer cells that seek and destroy cancer cells. When the microbiome is compromised, these cancer surveillance mechanisms become less effective, allowing potentially cancerous cells to escape detection and establish themselves in the body. I've observed this clinically in my elderly patients who transition to institutional care, where ultra-processed foods often dominate the menu. Within months, many show measurable declines in immune function and increases in inflammatory markers. The fourth mechanism involves nutrient displacement and deficiencies that critically impact DNA repair. When seniors fill their diets with ultra-processed foods, they're not just consuming harmful substances, they're also not eating the nutrient-dense whole foods their bodies desperately need. This creates a double jeopardy situation where the body is simultaneously under attack and deprived of its defense resources. Older adults already face challenges with nutrient absorption due to age-related changes in digestion, decreased stomach acid production, and often medication interactions. Adding a nutrient-poor diet to this equation creates the perfect storm for cancer development. Research from Tufts University's Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging has shown that specific nutrients play crucial roles in DNA repair and cancer prevention in elderly populations. For example, folate, which is abundant in leafy greens but largely absent in ultra-processed foods, is essential for DNA synthesis and repair. Similarly, antioxidants like vitamins C and E, selenium, and various phytonutrients found in whole foods help neutralize the free radicals that can damage DNA and initiate cancer development. A comprehensive analysis, published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, found that elderly individuals consuming diets high in ultra-processed foods had significantly lower blood levels of these protective nutrients, even when controlling for total caloric intake. This nutrient displacement creates a cellular environment where DNA damage accumulates more rapidly and repairs happen more slowly. One of my patients, Eleanor, age 83, came to me after a cancer diagnosis, wondering how this could happen when she never felt hungry and ate regularly. A detailed dietary analysis revealed that while she was consuming adequate calories, over 70% came from ultra-processed sources that provided minimal protective nutrients. Her blood work showed significant deficiencies in several cancer-protective nutrients despite her taking a basic multivitamin. This illustrates how ultra-processed foods create an illusion of nourishment while actually starving the body of what it truly needs to fight cancer. The fifth and perhaps most insidious mechanism is the exposure to potentially carcinogenic compounds that are either added to or created during the production of ultra-processed foods. These include nitrites and nitrates in processed meats, acrylamide formed during high-temperature processing, heterocyclic amines, bisphenol A from packaging, and various artificial colors and flavors that have shown carcinogenic potential in research studies. While regulatory agencies set limits on these compounds, they typically base safety standards on average adults, not considering the unique vulnerabilities of elderly physiology. Seniors process and eliminate toxins more slowly due to reduced liver and kidney function, allowing these compounds to circulate longer and cause more damage. Additionally, the cumulative exposure over decades creates what scientists call a body burden of toxins that can eventually overwhelm cellular defense mechanisms. A meta-analysis from the International Agency for Research on Cancer examined 47 studies and concluded that adults over 65 showed cellular damage from food-based carcinogens at exposure levels 40 to 60% lower than what caused similar damage in younger adults. This heightened sensitivity means that even consuming these foods within generally recognized safe limits could pose significant cancer risks for elderly individuals. I witnessed this reality with my patient George, who prided himself on being a moderate eater who never overindulged. However, his moderate daily consumption of certain ultra-processed foods still provided a steady stream of acrylamide and nitrosamine exposure that, combined with his age-related reduction in detoxification capacity, created the conditions for his pancreatic cancer to develop. This is why recommendations that might be reasonable for younger adults can still place seniors at significant risk. What makes these findings particularly troubling is how they intersect with the unique challenges many seniors face. Fixed incomes often make less expensive ultra-processed foods seem like the economical choice. Decreased mobility and energy can make convenience foods more appealing. Diminished taste sensation, common in aging, can lead seniors to gravitate toward the hyper-palatable flavors of processed foods, and social isolation may reduce the motivation to prepare proper meals. Understanding these realities, I've developed practical strategies to help my patients reduce their consumption of ultra-processed foods without feeling overwhelmed or deprived. These approaches acknowledge the real-world challenges seniors face while prioritizing the changes that offer the greatest risk reduction. For example, instead of suggesting a complete dietary overhaul, which can be daunting, I recommend a gradual replacement strategy targeting the most problematic ultra-processed foods first. We know from intervention studies that even reducing ultra-processed food consumption by 25% can lower inflammatory markers by nearly 30% in just 6 weeks. This gives us a practical target that feels achievable for most seniors. Let me share some specific alternatives that have worked for my patients. For breakfast cereals, which often contain multiple additives and added sugars, overnight oats provide a similarly convenient option with dramatically better nutritional value. They can be prepared in advance, require no cooking, and can be enhanced with fruits and nuts for additional cancer-fighting compounds. For convenient snacks, replacing packaged options with simple combinations like apple slices and nut butter, Greek yogurt with berries, or a small handful of nuts provides satisfaction without the processing. For those who rely on frozen meals, I suggest batch cooking simple soups or stews that can be portioned and frozen, providing the same convenience but with whole food ingredients, many of them. My patients have found that using a slow cooker once or twice a week allows them to prepare nutritious meals with minimal standing time in the kitchen, addressing mobility concerns. For seniors with chewing difficulties who rely on soft, ultra-processed foods, a basic blender can transform whole foods into equally manageable textures without the harmful additives. And for those with diminished taste who crave the strong flavors of processed foods, natural flavor enhancers like herbs, spices, citrus zest and vinegars can provide satisfaction without the detrimental health effects. These practical swaps have helped countless patients significantly reduce their cancer risk without feeling like they're sacrificing convenience or pleasure. The financial aspect of this dietary transition deserves special attention, as many seniors live on fixed incomes. Contrary to popular belief, research from the Harvard School of Public Health has demonstrated that a whole food diet can actually cost less than one based on ultra-processed foods when measured by nutrients provided rather than calories. This is particularly relevant for seniors who generally need fewer calories but higher nutrient density. Some practical approaches include focusing on seasonal produce, utilizing frozen fruits and vegetables, which are frozen at peak ripeness and maintain most nutrients, buying whole grains and legumes in bulk, and joining community-supported agriculture programs that often offer senior discounts. Additionally, many seniors qualify for nutrition assistance programs like SNAP and Senior Farmers Market vouchers that can help make whole foods more accessible. Community resources like senior center meals, which are increasingly focusing on whole food options, can also provide both nutritional and social benefits. When my patient Martha expressed concern about the cost of changing her diet, we calculated that by redirecting the money she spent on packaged snacks and ready meals towards strategic whole food purchases, she actually saved about $30 monthly, while dramatically improving her nutrient intake. This financial benefit came as a welcome surprise and increased her motivation to maintain the changes. Social factors play an equally important role in dietary habits among the elderly. Loneliness and isolation often lead to decreased motivation to cook and eat well. Additionally, many seniors who find themselves suddenly cooking for one after decades of preparing family meals struggle with the adjustment. Addressing these social dimensions is essential for sustainable dietary improvements. Community-based cooking classes specifically designed for seniors have shown remarkable success in not only teaching practical skills, but also creating supportive social connections. Meal-sharing arrangements, where neighbors take turns cooking and eating together, reduce the burden of daily cooking while providing valuable social interaction. For my patient James, who had little cooking experience before his wife's passing, a senior men's cooking group not only taught him basic culinary skills, but also provided weekly social connection that improved his overall well-being. Even virtual options, like online cooking communities specifically for seniors, can provide both instruction and connection for those with mobility limitations. These social approaches address the root causes of ultra-processed food reliance rather than simply focusing on the foods themselves. It's also important to acknowledge that completely eliminating ultra-processed foods may not be realistic or necessary for every senior. Research suggests that keeping these foods below 20% of total caloric intake substantially reduces cancer risk compared to the typical American senior diet, where these foods often comprise 60% or more of calories consumed. This threshold provides a practical target that balances health protection with quality of life considerations. For seniors in assisted living or nursing facilities where menu options may be limited, focusing on making the best available choices and perhaps supplementing with family-provided whole foods can still make a meaningful difference. When my patient Helen moved to assisted living, her family organized a weekly delivery of fresh fruits, nuts, and simple whole food snacks that helped her reduce her reliance on the facility's more processed options. Even with institutional constraints, she was able to lower her ultra-processed food consumption to about 30% of her diet, which correlated with improved blood markers at her next assessment. This pragmatic approach acknowledges real-world limitations while still prioritizing health protection. The timing of dietary changes is another consideration that deserves attention. Many seniors wonder if making changes is worthwhile after decades of certain eating habits or after a cancer diagnosis has already occurred. The research offers an emphatically positive answer. Studies on dietary intervention in elderly populations show that the benefits of reducing ultra-processed food consumption begin within weeks, regardless of previous dietary history. Even more encouraging, research from the University of California, San Francisco suggests that dietary improvements can significantly improve outcomes even after a cancer diagnosis, potentially enhancing treatment effectiveness and reducing recurrence risk. This aligns with my clinical observations, where patients who improved their diets during and after treatment generally experienced better quality of life and treatment outcomes. This evidence provides powerful motivation for dietary changes at any age or stage of health. As I tell my patients, the best time to improve your diet was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. For some seniors, particularly those with significant health challenges or limited support systems, completely overhauling their diet may seem overwhelming. In these cases, I recommend focusing on specific ultra-processed food categories that pose the greatest cancer risk. Research has identified processed meats like bacon, sausage, hot dogs, and deli meats as particularly problematic due to their combination of nitrates, salt, and processing methods. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies these as Group 1 carcinogens, placing them in the same category as tobacco smoking. Simply eliminating or drastically reducing this single category can significantly lower cancer risk. Similarly, heavily processed snack foods with multiple additives, artificial colors, and high levels of refined carbohydrates show stronger associations with cancer development than more minimally processed items. Prioritizing the elimination of these highest-risk foods while making more gradual changes in other areas provides a manageable approach that still offers substantial health benefits. When my 92-year-old patient Vincent felt that a complete dietary overhaul was too much to contemplate, we focused solely on replacing his daily processed meat consumption with alternatives like fresh roasted turkey, eggs, and bean-based spreads. Even this single change led to measurable improvements in his inflammatory markers after just 2 months. While dietary changes are powerful, they become even more effective when combined with other lifestyle factors that reduce cancer risk. Moderate physical activity, appropriate to ability level, has been shown to dramatically enhance the body's capacity to repair DNA damage and eliminate potentially cancerous cells. Even 15-20 minutes of gentle movement daily provides significant protective benefits. Adequate hydration helps the body eliminate toxins more efficiently, while sufficient sleep allows cellular repair mechanisms to function optimally. Stress management techniques like meditation, deep breathing, or simply engaging in enjoyable activities help reduce stress hormones that can promote cancer growth. And maintaining social connections not only improves quality of life, but has been linked to better immune function and lower cancer risk. When my patient Doris combined dietary improvements with a daily 15-minute walk, a regular sleep schedule, and weekly social activities with friends, her overall health metrics improved far more than we typically see with dietary changes alone. This integrated approach recognizes that cancer prevention isn't just about what seniors eat, but about creating an overall environment where their bodies can effectively protect themselves against cancer development. I want to emphasize that while the information I've shared today is concerning, it also represents an incredible opportunity. Unlike many cancer risk factors that we can't control, such as genetic predisposition or past environmental exposures, dietary choices are something we can change today. And unlike some health interventions that require significant resources or medical access, reducing ultra-processed food consumption is something that most people can implement regardless of their circumstances. The research is clear that it's never too late to benefit from these changes. I've seen patients in their 90s experience remarkable improvements in their health markers after reducing their consumption of ultra-processed foods. Each meal is an opportunity to nourish rather than harm your body. Each grocery trip is a chance to choose foods that protect rather than endanger your health. And while perfect dietary choices aren't realistic or necessary, even modest improvements can significantly reduce cancer risk. This empowering knowledge puts you in control of an important aspect of your cancer risk, regardless of your age or current health status. Let me recap the key points we've covered today. Ultra-processed foods significantly increase cancer risk in elderly individuals through 5 main mechanisms: triggering excessive inflammation, increasing formation of advanced glycation end products, disrupting the gut microbiome, causing nutrient displacement, and exposing the body to potentially carcinogenic compounds. Seniors are particularly vulnerable to these effects due to age-related changes in their physiology. Practical alternatives exist that don't sacrifice convenience or pleasure, and even modest reductions in ultra-processed food consumption can provide substantial benefits. Community resources and social approaches can help overcome common barriers to dietary improvement, and it's never too late to make changes that can significantly reduce cancer risk, even after decades of different eating habits or after a cancer diagnosis. I want to thank you for staying with me through this important information. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below with any questions or experiences you'd like to share. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our weekly videos on cancer prevention and healthy aging. Remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to your health. You deserve to make informed choices about what you put in your body, and I'm honored to be part of your health journey. This is Dr. Wilson signing off with my favorite reminder: your age is just a number, but your health is everything. Until next time, take care of yourself because you matter.